I'm 50 years old, and if I'm honest, this story has been unfolding a lot longer than I'd like to admit. Back in my 20s, I thought I was gifted. Muscle came easy. If I dieted, weight fell off, and I figured it was genetics. What I didn't see was the shadow underneath. No real discipline, no consistency. At the time, I didn't blame myself. I blamed my dad for not setting the example, my friends for being a bad influence, my family for not showing me what a good life looked like. Anyone but me. But I did have discipline. I just spent it in the wrong places. I worked long hours, chased money, and poured it into things that proved I wasn't poor anymore. Cars, clothes, and once, a 4-bedroom house in a family neighborhood, water park at the pool, high-priced HOA, the works. I was single. 3 bedrooms sat empty. White walls echoing like a box. I never used the amenities, but it looked good on Facebook, and that was the point. That pattern, choosing what felt good now, touched every part of my life. Food, money, health. I never learned to delay gratification. Why wait 10 months for a leaner body when the pizza was hot today? And then came alcohol. That was the pinnacle. Crack a few beers and all of the stress faded. 12 packs weren't unusual. I told myself this was the life. Grind 50 or 60 hours a week, then drink all weekend. But the shame followed me. I remember declining an invite to a friend's boat. Not because I didn't want to go, I just didn't want to peel off my shirt and stand next to people who looked like they had their lives figured out. In my head, I muttered, they've just got better genetics. Or the night I stood in a department store dressing room, sweating under the fluorescent lights, wrestling into a suit I couldn't afford just to attend an event. The mirror didn't lie. I yanked at the buttons and thought, this isn't fit, this is cover-up. And when the body suffers, the mind follows. I numbed with alcohol. I numbed with food. At one point, I even numbed with antidepressants. As if beer, bad diet, and pills would somehow add up to balance. Years blurred in that cycle. I'll start Monday. I'll have a 6-pack by October. Then October came and went and nothing changed. My friends rolled their eyes. I became the guy who talked a big game but never followed through. And that's when it cut deeper, when you stop believing in yourself. If I can't trust my own word, who else will? One night, sitting alone in a dark living room, I thought about the easiest way out, a one-way ticket. And in that silence, I realized, this is my rock bottom. I couldn't keep living that way, but I didn't even know what different meant anymore. I convinced myself it was my job, too stressful, too toxic, too much. So I quit. 20 plus years gone overnight. No big savings, no plan, just the belief that anything was better than this. That's when the blame game ramped up. It's the job, it's the friends, it's the system. But slowly, painfully, every finger I pointed outwards turned back towards me. It didn't happen in a day, but it came. In the meantime, I chased fixes, the wrong kind. I maxed out credit cards, flying to conferences, following internet gurus who screamed dominance and flashed rented cars. My wife even agreed to it, hoping maybe this was the break I needed. Most of it was smoke and mirrors, but through all the noise, I stumbled upon something real. A small brotherhood of men who weren't pretending. They didn't scream or threaten. They didn't need to. They just lived with quiet consistency. And standing next to them, I thought, if they can, maybe I can too. I took steps forward, then back. Progress was fragile. I leaned on others for my happiness. I drowned myself in books and podcasts, filling notebooks with ideas I never acted on. I told myself I was learning, but really I was hiding. Meanwhile, reality closed in. My wife had left her job too, searching for her own version of happiness. That meant no income for either of us. We sold our home, moved into an apartment, emptied my 401k, and watched our accounts bleed faster than we'd ever imagined. I kept waiting for an epiphany, for the thunderclap moment where everything would make sense. But epiphanies don't keep appointments. What did come were tiny steps, taking one idea from a book and actually doing it that day. Small enough to seem meaningless, but they stacked. Eventually, they gave me traction. I re-entered the workforce on my own terms. I built a role that I could live with. The money wasn't what it used to be, but it was sustainable, and it didn't bury me like before. Physically, I trimmed a little, dropped some bad habits, but I was still inconsistent, still far from the man I wanted to be. Then came my 50th birthday. My wife threw a surprise party and my friends showed up and we bar hopped and we drank. I had been on retatrutide, a peptide I thought might help me drop fat and control cravings, but what I didn't expect was that it quieted my urge for alcohol. I barely wanted to drink anymore, but that night I drank anyway, a lot. And in the chaos of planning, I had skipped my blood pressure meds for a couple of days. The next morning, I woke up and couldn't see out of my right eye. I brushed it off, said, it's just a migraine. By evening, my vision still hadn't returned. A specialist confirmed it, an ocular stroke, permanent most likely. And the same conditions that caused it could cause a full stroke. That's when the scenarios played out in my head. Best case, I die. My wife loses her husband, her income, and the home in one blow. She's left to pick up the pieces alone. Worst case, I live. Disabled, no income, no insurance, hospital bills, and now she's wiping my drool, changing my diapers, and carrying that weight for decades. I look at her young and beautiful with her whole life ahead of her, and I thought, absolutely not. That was my line in the sand. All I had to do was finally do the things I had failed at for decades. Take care of myself, eat right, move, show up. Things I wanted for me anyway, but now it wasn't about me anymore. It was about her. That became my why. I read Simon Sinek's Start With Why 6 times, listened to the audiobook, but I never had one. Not really, until now. The very next morning, I walked, I went to the gym, I meal prepped, and I didn't stop. The scale started moving, my joints eased, the inflammation that had plagued me for years began to fade, and for the first time, the mirror showed change. Compliments flowed, encouragement followed, but none of that was the fire. The fire was the why. On my nightstand, I keep 2 reminders, the birthday sash that says 50th, and a cheap LED ice cube from that night. When the voice whispers, skip it today, I see them and I remember. I remember the line I drew, the promise I made, and I get up. Here's what I know now. Before you chase supplements, programs, or quick fixes, you need a why strong enough to make you cry if you lost it. That's the anchor. That's the difference. AI can build you a meal plan. A trainer can write you a workout. Those things work, but only if you show up. Show up for your why every day. My wish for us, you and me, is that we stop searching for shortcuts and finally sit with the harder question. What's the thing you cannot bear to lose? Because once you name it, once you feel it in your chest, that's the anchor. That's the tether strong enough to hold you to every excuse, every temptation. Not a program, not a pill, not a pep talk, your why. My hope is that you find it, and when you do, that you guard it fiercely. Let it carry you through the mornings you don't want to rise, the nights you rather numb out, the moments you're tempted to break another promise to yourself. Because when you stand on that why, you're not just surviving anymore, you're finally living with a reason.